call George Knapp.
Calling George Knapp, mobile.
Hey, George.
Hey, man.
What's up, man? How you doing?
All right. What's going on?
This is now 30 years since you initially broke the story of Bob Lazar. So, I mean, the amount of information is overwhelming, and I just want to go over with you some of the details of the case.
Sure.
We're talking about UFOs, alien craft, back engineering, and there's Lazar saying he did all that, and from what I understand, it's spread everywhere.
Yeah, we had the first interview in May of 1989 with him as Dennis, who's not his real identity, not known, not revealed to the audience. And even that, before we know who Bob Lazar was, that sparked a great deal of interest among the public. I spent the 8 months between May and November trying to verify Bob's background to see if we could solidify the case, to see if we could find out if he was telling the truth. And then the plan was to unleash it in November, which is what we did. It was the highest rated news series we've ever done. It was the highest rated news special that ever aired in Las Vegas. And then it really exploded. It went all over the world. Bootleg copies of the tapes were being sold and shown in movie theaters. You had media interest from all over the world. And I think a lot of it was skeptical at the beginning, which of course it would be. But in the end, every major news organization in the world beat a path to Area 51's door. And tens of thousands of people started showing up out there to see whatever it was that was flying around in the desert. They're still coming all these years later. And I know a lot of my media colleagues have had problems with that story, but they've all covered it, all of them. It put Area 51 on the map. It's now known all over the world. Even though Lazar worked at S4, Area 51 is the term that the public knows. So it was huge. It was huge then, it's huge now.
Area 51, one of the most secretive spots on the planet. It's located on the northeast edge of the Nevada test site and is said to be where numerous top-secret weapons systems have been tested over the years. According to some UFO researchers, it's also where the government is test-flying alien spacecraft. It sounds pretty far out, but some Las Vegas residents report having seen these flying saucers.
A local scientist who says he worked at Groom Lake and saw the saucers joins us in tonight's interview. He has asked that his identity be shielded. Sir, how do we know you are who you say you are and that you actually have knowledge about what's going on at Groom Lake?
Well, I guess there's no way you could really know. There's really no way I could prove it without revealing my identity and getting myself into more trouble than I have already.
Exactly what's going on up there?
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin. And they're being test flown and basically just analyzed.
You say there's 9 saucers. How are those tests going?
As far as what?
As far as whether they're successful and that sort of thing.
Oh, well, some of them are 100% intact and operate perfectly. The other ones are being taken apart. I was involved mainly in propulsion and the power source.
Where did we get these saucers? How did they come into the hands of the government?
I haven't the slightest idea, and you have to understand the information is very compartmentalized, and I was only allowed information that pertained particularly to what I was involved in.
But I mean, couldn't our government have made them as opposed to getting them from some alien beings?
Totally impossible. The propulsion system is a gravity propulsion system. The power source is an antimatter reactor. This technology does not exist at all. In fact, one of the reasons that I'm going forward with this information, it's not only a crime against the American people, it's a crime against the scientific community, which I've been part of for some time. We're actively trying to duplicate these systems, yet they are in existence now and basically in the hands of the government.
What would happen to you if the government learned that you were giving us this information?
Anything could happen. I don't know. I haven't the slightest idea.
Well, you said you referred to getting into trouble. Have you had some repercussions already?
Yeah, I've been threatened with being charged with espionage. I've had my life threatened by them, my wife's life threatened by them, and I mean, I don't know where else you can go from there.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us. Pretty interesting stuff you've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, more news in just a moment.
Now, first we go to Dan Rather in Beijing for a look ahead at the CBS Evening News.
CBS Evening News from China. We'll have extensive coverage of Mikhail Gorbachev.
So here I am, and I'm watching you do your work. When people don't know you, it's so easy for them to just make shit up about you and to dehumanize you. How simple that is to do. The fact that somebody would say you're not a scientist.
I mean, all I've ever done is science-related stuff my entire life. So, I don't know. I guess the point is, do I really care what people I don't know think? And probably to some extent I do, but I don't dwell on it. I guess it is easier to discredit someone that you have no information on, because you can just say anything about them and there's nothing to refute it. I mean, I feel privileged I got to work in it. So, in some respects, I shouldn't be allowed to complain. I've given the example of transporting a small modern-day portable nuclear reactor back into Victorian times and giving it to the scientists there. Well, back in that time, they didn't even know about radiation. So they'd see a machine making power, kind of like what we're doing, and marvel at it. Wow, it's producing a lot of power. There's no smokestack, there's no coal, there's no fuel. How is this thing working? And they start taking it apart. Well, they'll all die as soon as they get close to the core. People that come in to check on them will all die. And no one knows, nothing touched them, so they're going to think it's haunted or something. There's some evil forces or something in there. But, I mean, who says that can't happen to us? The first time Barry showed me the reactor in operation, here it is on the bench, and he said, try and touch the sphere on top. And you couldn't, your hand was pushed away. Just like, two like poles of a magnet. It's the exact same feeling, but there was no metal involved. And that's shocking. That's really shocking, because nothing does that. That's an operating, powerful force field. So just seeing something like that immediately starts that whole chain reaction in your mind going, wow, wait, if you can do this, there can be force fields on tanks. There can be things that lift off the ground. We don't need jet and rocket engines anymore. That means there's no use for cars. I mean, boom, the whole thing changes. The entire world, the economy, everything would go end on end just if we had an answer to how that machine worked that I was sitting there touching.
The potential for us to re-understand human experience is...
Right. There's life somewhere else. It's a big deal. It's an important part of human history that we found that out. It was awesome, but fearsome at the same time.
Bob has explained to me multiple times he tried everything in his power to prove his story.
I wanted to feel better for myself. So I said, hey, would you be willing to undergo a polygraph test? He did not hesitate. He said yes. 4 different tests on 4 different areas of Bob's claims. And he said afterward, there is no attempt to deceive at all. He's telling what he believes to be the truth. I have asked the question many times over the years, how did Bob Lazar know this stuff if he wasn't there? He knew there was a place called S4. I had called Nellis Air Force Base, Public Information Office. They confirmed for me there really was a place called S4. Now, there's no news story prior to Bob Lazar about any place called S4. He knew about it. He also knew that EG&G had arranged to hire personnel, that if you were going to get a job out of Groom Lake, EG&G was the company that you would go through. He knew that there had been investigators at his home for the background check. You remember the guy's name. It was an odd name, Mike Thigpen. Now, how did he know? How did he know that Mike Thigpen works for a federal agency that does this stuff?
After 30 years, and this guy dodging you, I found Mike Thigpen. That's
amazing.
I couldn't believe it. He's on the East Coast. I called him. I've talked with him multiple times. He won't go on camera because he doesn't want to kind of put a dark shadow upon the work that he did before. But personally, he conveyed to me that was his job That was exactly what he did in Las Vegas in 1989. And in fact, he remembers Bob Lazar.
The most important thing Bob knew is that they were flying something that looks exactly like a flying saucer over Papoose Lake. And they flew them on Wednesday nights. And he took people out there 3 weeks in a row and showed it to them. And at least once, maybe twice, they recorded it on video. That's real. How did Bob know that? There have been no stories about test flights of flying saucers at Papoose Lake. And by the way, that's where it was. It wasn't over Groom Lake. It was over Papoose Lake. We checked out so many details that Bob had told us that turned out to be true. The existence of S4, element 115, really did become an element years later, that Bob had been consulted by the lab which first synthesized man-made element 115. There was a whole long string of things that he knew that checked out.
These milestones along the way, no matter how much we nitpick it apart, no matter how much people don't want to believe it, the evidence that he's telling the truth outweighs the evidence that he's not.
Well, I agree with you. And if I did not believe that, I would not still be working on the story. I would not be publicly defending Bob Lazar.
What was your function working on this? You were doing what? What was your job?
We were to reverse engineer the power and propulsion system of this craft and see if it can be duplicated with available materials.
I just want to go over with you what it is that you saw, to draw it out for people, to make a sketch. As you're seeing it, as if you're there at that moment, kind of go back in the past.
It's the thing I termed the sport model. Underneath this floor, there are three large cylindrical devices. These are on mounts that allow them to completely swivel up to 180 degrees and in 360 degree rotation. Directly above each one is a small rectangular object. This is on the floor above. And these are the gravity amplifiers themselves. Looking down from the top, you'd have the center. In the very center, there is a small reactor. Surrounding this, in three equally spaced areas, are the amplifiers. So this is looking at it sideways, this is looking at it down from the top. And under these amplifiers, underneath, on the floor below, are the gravity emitters. So it's the reactor here, powering the gravity amplifiers. Gravity amplifiers output goes into the gravity emitters at the bottom, and the resulting gravity beam or anti-gravity wave can be pretty much put anywhere you want to. There was another level up here. Now I had access and was permitted to view and look at the operation of this main level with the gravity amplifiers and the level below, the gravity emitters. There is a level above which consisted of these two areas that I'm not all that familiar with. I assume these to be some sort of navigational engine. People call these large black rectangular areas on the top portholes. I believe they were some planar sensor array that just took in information from the surrounding area, whether it be patterns of stars or what have you. And there was their version of a computer or something to make determinations here that takes input from those sensors and then let the craft know how to orient itself and where it was in space. So that's what I assumed to be up there. I don't know for a fact. Again, that was not part of my job, and I was only led to believe that. The center antenna is really an extension of the reactor in the center, and that's a waveguide, which allows the emission of the gravity wave, which forms kind of a heart shape over the whole craft. That's how it creates its distortion. These gravity emitters can be swung all the way up to 180 degrees. And this allows the craft to essentially stand on two of them and hover, while this one swings up and creates a distortion in front of it, allowing the craft to slide forward. So that's how their low power mode, Omicron configuration operate. The Delta configuration uses all three, and unlike science fiction movies where you see flying saucers just flying along like that, they actually fly belly first. The craft flies along, leaves the atmosphere of the planet. It turns its belly to the destination. The three amplifiers focus in on the destination, and that's how it proceeds. So that's basically the operation of it and overall how things were laid out inside the craft.
This is an alien spacecraft.
Right, obviously.
Since the New York Times story broke, since Lou Elizondo came forward, since those videos went public, the world is now talking about UFOs in a more serious vein. I think that's a good thing, and I think it reflects positively on Bob Lazar's story, and I hope that the world will take another look at it.
Thus, the jet bike, the jet car.
Yeah, to take, a large amount of energy, which would normally be thought to be out of control, to take that and harness it and have it do what you want has always been impressive to me.
The easy way out is to say he's a liar, he's making it up. It's hard to go ahead and accept the possibility that he's telling the truth. But if I did not believe it, if I thought for a moment that he was lying about it, I'd be done with it. I wouldn't still be supporting it 30 years later.
Your life has been under a microscope. Every word you've said for 30 years recorded has been under a microscope, and that's affected you.
Yeah, of course it has. It would affect anybody.
How has it affected you?
In the way I talk and how much I do. I'd rather not, in a public forum, I'd rather just not say anything.
Why do you think people are so obsessed with every word that you say about your experiences, working
They're
at
just
S1?
looking for a way to look for an inaccuracy and to be able to discount the whole thing. Oh, he said this one time and said it slightly different this time. Obviously he's making it up. No, that's just the first word that entered my mind. I don't put that much thought into it when I'm saying it. Look, as much as a lot of people hate it, this stuff really happened. I mean, if it bothers you, that's too bad.
I think that's just hard for people to accept. I mean, so...
Yeah, it would be... Look, I fully understand. I would feel the same way. I'm not sure I would believe my story. Boy, there's not enough evidence, but I couldn't discount it either.
The fact is, the people that know him best believe him the most. I hope that one thing that comes across in your film is the real Bob. Once you get to know him, it becomes much more plausible as a story. He's not lying to his mom and his wife and all his friends. He's not lying to the UFO world either.
You saw alien ships.
Yeah.
You worked on a gravity wave amplification system trying to figure it out.
Right, a propulsion system and a power source that's completely unknown to mankind.
And there's no way human beings could have made it.
There is no way human beings could have made it, under any circumstances, in any country, anywhere, period.
And for 30 years, you are telling us the truth.
You bet.
This shit happened.
You got it.
The fact is that raid that happened in Michigan, that's a very dramatic and very important development. They weren't there looking for records about some customer he had a couple of years ago. They were looking for 115. When you bring 24 agents and investigators and crime lab analysis, and you can bring people to duplicate the whole computers and all that stuff, they're looking for something else. Sure as hell are not looking for a minor receipt. People may not believe that 115 is real, but somebody does, because that's what they came to look for. If you want to cross it off and you don't want to believe it, fine. I don't care anymore whether people believe it or not. But Bob's telling the truth. And once you realize that, it changes everything for you. It changed everything for me.
explosive stuff is coming out. I mean, something's going on right now. Can you talk about that?
If everything goes as planned, I think we are on the eve of something momentous that will change on a tectonic level, the UFO subject. It's going to be really big. I think it changes the tone of how other media would treat the UFO topic from here on out. I hope so anyway. And it's going to reveal some things that have been going on for a long time.
Government involvement in studying the phenomenon itself.
Yeah, it's beyond just lights in the sky or radar returns. They've been investigating and looking into associated phenomena, things that occur in proximity with what we call UFOs, things that you would think the government would find too far out.
Will any of the fingers be pointing toward Skinwalker Ranch?
Declassified videos, authentic Department of Defense footage published by the New York Times in December.
The program received more than $20 million for its work.
For nearly the last decade, I ran a sensitive aerospace threat identification program.
People, I think, have conflated the concept of a UFO with whether we're visited by aliens.
The program produced documents that describe sightings of aircraft with no visible signs of propulsion.
We're talking about unidentified flying objects, UFOs. We have something here. We don't know what it is. We sure don't know how it works. And by the way, there's nothing we can do about it.
Nobody gives a about aliens there.
Yeah.
It's they're looking for things that might possibly be...
This is a potential threat, a grave one to our country. What is DoD doing about it?
The so-called Tic Tac UFO was detected over several days in 2004 by personnel with the USS Nimitz battle group off the coast of San Diego. It didn't attack, but it demonstrated vast superiority over America's most advanced defense systems.
These observations match with previous observations going well before that. You have something coming into our airspace. When it continues to happen as a pattern, we now become increasingly concerned because it's not an anomaly, now it's a trend.
This video was recorded off the coast of Florida in 2015.
That is in our airspace and shouldn't be here. You, DOD, you, CIA, you, DHS, have the responsibility of protecting us. How did this happen? And yet it's crickets. Nobody wants to have the conversation. My job in the government at the time was twofold: to determine what it was and how it worked. I figured if we can answer at least those two first things, everything else we'll be able to explain later.
The technology of these craft is beyond anything known on Earth.
This is the story of a place. It's been shrouded in secrecy for more than 20 years. There have been whispers, but most likely, you've never seen or heard the real events. I guarantee you that was the plan all along. That's exactly what they wanted. Imagine a place between shadow and substance. A place where the world is thin. To most, a location that invokes the darkest and most hidden corners of terror. Something prowls here, something lurks. And if you hunt it, it's gonna hunt you back. It's elusive, manipulative, and violent. It's haunting more than haunted. We don't really understand it. Even after the largest scale scientific study in history of a paranormal hotspot, there are more questions than answers. However, we do have some answers, and that's what this story is about. This is a hunt for answers to unformed questions. A hunt for the unknown. And the answers have been hiding at a ranch at the center of it all.
The phenomena was playing with us, giving us only a taste here and there of various things. An opportunity to see things that were abnormal. Opportunity to cause examinations upon performances of things that were very unique through certain pathological kinds of investigations. The performances didn't repeat themselves. Each time there would be a performance of a sort, there was always some unique pattern. It was something that was always changed. So we would be prepared that if this type of event happened again, we know what to do. Well, that exact same event never happened again. It would always be something completely different. Every time we would come up with some method of observation or calibration, it seemed that we were always outguessed. It became obvious that we obviously weren't the ones in control. We were along for the ride, and that a lot of these exhibitions were exhibitions for gamesmanship or instruction, in that kind of context.
You know there's more to a story, and you're not allowed to talk about it. That's a human burden.
Yeah, I mean, it was frustrating in the beginning because Colum and Bob Bigelow would tell me these stories about what was going on the property, and I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't write about it, and it drove me crazy. And I kept pestering them, and eventually they thought, what the heck, we'll give it a try. Maybe we'll find out if there are other places like it. The publicity will do us some good. Maybe some other witnesses will come forward. So they allowed me to write those newspaper articles, and we got a heck of a lot of attention.
Bob Bigelow is one of the most enigmatic individuals that you ever hear about. The guy's got 2 private orbiting space stations for study. He's an individual connected through government contracts. Skinwalker Ranch. He's allowed you to be there a number of times. He's really let you in.
Bob Bigelow is probably the most misunderstood person in the entire field of ufology. He's not a ufologist. He's a wealthy businessman who happens to have an interest in the topic. He has spent more money trying to pursue UFO truth than any person in the history of the world.
What is Bigelow's endgame? What is his curiosity? What is his interest? Why is he doing this?
The interest is personal. It comes from family experiences. It's what got him hungry about the topic to begin with. People have the craziest ideas about Bob Bigelow. I've seen the descriptions of him. He's shadowy. He's drug business. He's in the tea business. He's a gun runner. He's a casino owner. Crazy stuff. He's only interested in this so he can capture the technology and build his own spacecraft and take the elite off this planet. All he's done is give his resources to trying to find out what's going on. For example, he gave $1 million to the UFO organizations, told them, here's $1 million. You don't have any resources. You're always bitching about not having any money. Here's $1 million. You just got to figure out a way to get along and divvy it up and make sure it goes to actual research. Of course, they fucked it up. They fucked it up because they couldn't get along. He said, I want to establish a training program where we have a strike force, kind of a rapid response team. So when you've got a UFO flap, you've got a big case, you've got the money to jump on a plane, send some people there, have boots on the ground, and investigate it. And of course, he was pilloried for it. He created NIDS, National Institute for Discovery Science. He was so disgusted by MUFON, by the UFO organizations and their lack of progress, he created his own UFO organization. There's never been a gathering of great minds as great as these in one pursuit of UFO truth in the history of the world. This board that he put together, the makeup of this board, some of them, their names still are not public. They don't want it to hurt their careers, but man, that's an amazing group of people. And I've been there, and they don't come in with an agenda. They weren't there to
create their own flying saucer fleet. The idea was they devote their time, their own time, to pursuing UFO truth because they thought there's something important going on here. It's worth spending our time to pursue this, and they gave a lot, volunteered a lot, and no one gave more than Bigelow, and no one has been beaten up more than Bigelow because of it. It's ridiculous.
Is there something that has shaken Bigelow or shaken you about the ranch?
Bob's interest in the ranch was primarily an interest in UFOs. He bought the place because people had been seeing UFOs. The flying saucers, traditional UFO stuff, that was his interest. But of course, as he and his team learned, there's a lot more to it than that. They had no idea what they were getting, I think. When they bought the place, they heard bits and pieces here and there. They interviewed the family and heard these stories, but I don't think they could possibly imagine how far it would go. Have there been experiences there that have shaken the people involved? Absolutely. And I think Bob Bigelow would be included in that. I can't tell you. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you he's had some dramatic episodes that have convinced him that something is real, there. And his team have had those episodes. I mean, these are PhD level guys who have worked for every three-letter agency you can imagine, who are there because they want to know what's going on. They've worked for the Pentagon and CIA and other agencies and in scientific think tanks, bright PhD level people who are there investigating this mystery, and it has scared the shit out of them. I mean, it's confronted them directly. It's one thing to be reading about UFOs or other realities or interdimensionals in a book. It's another thing to be staring at it right in the face and for it to be communicating with you and telling you, get out, you're not welcome. And that's happened there.
In 1978, a local newspaper reported high activity in the Uinta Basin. Silver dome-shaped objects were seen, flying saucers. Some witnesses observing the display from close proximity, from underneath the craft. UFOs were buzzing the locals with jagged green lights like fire. Nothing really changes. It's constant. The phenomenon is engaging people. It's a pattern of close encounters. It's commonplace. People hunt the cause. Scientists investigate the carnage. The NIDS team tried to quantify the performances. They created control studies for plant growth. They monitored the environment. They calculated the variables. They analyzed every event. But mostly, they waited for the phenomenon to express itself. And the phenomenon seemed to toy with them, to play games with them. Silence followed by dramatic displays of control. It did what it wanted. It does what it wants. To anybody. What's your name?
Oh, my name's Janice Puya.
And where do you live in relation to Skinwalker Ranch?
I just live west of Skinwalker Ranch.
What was that exact moment when you transitioned from being skeptical, a non-believer, to being a believer?
Yeah, describe the incident itself.
The four heifers were in the north field, and I could hear them bellowing, but we couldn't figure out where they were. My bright idea was, well, let's get the spotlight. At nighttime, let's get that spotlight, and we'll go through the tree line like this. You have to see eyes. I said, then that'll give us a general idea where they're at night, so we can set up panels and run them back over to the house. So we're going, they were bellowing, so we're going, but I couldn't see nothing. So I turned it on, I said, okay, let's listen. And when I went, let's listen, that's when that light came. It came clear from the sky. I mean, it hit like this, and it lit up the whole truck.
And it physically hit you, the light?
Yeah, it literally came down in and lit up everything. I was like, wait a minute. And I turned back, I said, that's not possible. That is not possible. And that's when I started, like, something's here and it's real. And I just got an eye-opener, because I was a non-believer before that.
So that was the experience that changed it for you, where you realized...
I'm sorry. I just kind of got broke up for a minute. Forgive me. Okay.
What's overwhelming?
Because my neighbor, Charlie Wynn, after that big mothership or whatever you want to call it, or I don't know, he'd stop by every day on his way home from work. His face was so red, I couldn't believe it. When I looked up, he said, that light hit me. He said, it scared the shit out of me so bad. He said, I was crawling in the ditch to get that water to cool him off. He got cancer and it killed him, and I always think, I wonder if it was from that, because I mean, it was like, you know how somebody has like a real bad burn and it's just so red and deep?
This is something that is really important for this whole story, this phenomenon. So can you just tell me what that wave of emotion was?
My son was diagnosed just last year, and it's hard to deal with it because that's your baby, you know. And when it first started out, it was like I was hitting brick walls. And I'm like, Lord, you know, I'm not the perfect person, but why?
Do you fear that the phenomenon has something to do with these illnesses, like with your son and your friends?
It kind of makes me believe because, like I said, my son was strong as a bull.
So there is a element of fear for the ones you love, that there is a malevolence to it, you know, an evil that seems to be attacking the health of those you love.
Yeah.
That is something you believe to be true.
Yes.
So all the people have been exposed to some kind of experience.
What question is it that you would like answered? What answer are you looking to find?
Is it really real, or is it something the government's doing? Is it really like an entity or beings or what? Is it real, or is it government made up?
What do you think?
I think it's real.
So I guess I just want to hear a little bit, you know, from George. Why do you want this out now?
The universe is more mysterious and wondrous and complicated than we imagine. Reality is more complicated than what it might seem.
Full stop.
Yeah.
I thought that coming in about 6 years ago, that if we essentially threw personnel and equipment at this problem on this property as well as elsewhere, and if we really pulled out the stops in terms of chemical analysis, that we probably would get answers. But any answers that we've got don't seem to fit the overall thinking. And I'm thinking mostly of the kinds of chemical analysis that are being carried out on the UFO artifacts, as well as some of the preliminary chemical analysis we've done on the mutilations. I don't think that there's an iota of evidence from any of that stuff that really nails the extraterrestrial thing. There's really no strong evidence that it's extraterrestrial. That's a fly in the ointment. It's really against the predictions. It's counterintuitive. If anything, that has created more questions than I originally had coming into this whole thing.
essentially the ranch became a testing ground, a proving ground, if you will, applying the scientific method. This team, this group of multidisciplinary scientists, both on the staff and of the Science Advisory Board, to attempt to solve a problem using the scientific method. And we couldn't do it. The scientific method is not amenable to these kind of problems. It is not that malleable. It's not that flexible to be able to apply easily to a problem such as this, which is non-repeatable. Every time a phenomenon occurs, it's not always the same one as before. It's always something new and always something different.
What is the link between the current releases by the Department of Defense using the New York Times to get out 2 videos, now 3? What is the connection between that and the ranch?
So it's kind of a long and winding road with a lot of acronyms involved, but here's the basics. December 2017, the New York Times breaks a story about the existence of a secret UFO program in the Pentagon. And while many of us have long suspected they had something going, we didn't know exactly what it was. Well, it turns out it's something called ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. A guy named Lou Elizondo comes forward. He says he is the point man for this program. In addition, we learned that there was a contract given out, and it involved BASS, Bigelow Advanced Aerospace, within Bigelow Aerospace here in Las Vegas, and that a study had been conducted, $22 million, and that part of that study focused on Skinwalker Ranch. A lot of people assumed that ATIP and BASS were almost synonymous, that the money for ATIP and BASS came from the same pot, that it was the same program. Fact is, it wasn't. BASS was involved with something else. BASS was under a much larger program, the existence of which has not been made public yet. But BASS was not part of ATIP. ATIP did communicate with BASS. There was exchange of information back and forth. But it wasn't ATIP that went to the ranch. It was somebody else. BASS investigators went to the property, investigated it, interviewed witnesses, collected evidence, much like NIDS had done before, National Institute for Discovery Science, which, while many people suspected it was a government program, was not. It was completely funded by Bob Bigelow. He bought the property. He hired the people to be there. He conducted studies for more than a decade. He owned the ranch for 20 years and sold it in 2016. NIDS was private. BASS was public in that it was funded by taxpayer money. And that came from a program whose name has not yet been made public.
What is going on at Skinwalker Ranch?
If you're asking, did we crack the mystery, the answer is no. You know, it was very frustrating for the scientists, both the NIDS guys and the BASS guys, and I think any other agency that's been involved in the study. We don't have an answer to how it works. We know that it is real, and it's mysterious, and it's documentable, and it's physical. And sometimes it's not physical. Sometimes it appears almost like a hologram, and it's a trickster, and it's elusive. It is clearly intelligent, but we don't know what it is, or where it's from, or what its intentions are. Does it mean to harm us? Sometimes it does harm us. Part of what the BASS study did, they evaluated databases from around the world, including some very dramatic cases from other countries where humans faced significant harm, physical harm. And there have been some reports of that in the Uinta Basin as well, where people were harmed after encountering these things. Could some of them be government? I think the answer is yes. Are all of them government? I'd say the answer is no. You know, I try to prepare myself for these trips that we make, and I'm respectful of whatever it is that's there, and I don't want to take anything home to any loved ones, but most of the people who've gone there as many times as we have taken something with them, and I don't want that to happen.
And what did you know of Dr. Lear before?
Absolutely nothing. I knew nothing about Dr. Lear until I was introduced.
Would you consider your life to have been completely normal up until the point where you've engaged these people interested in your story?
My life has been normal but it did get thrown into a storm once I met these UFO folks. When Dr. Lear and his associates told me that this could be an implant, now it's all been brought back up to the surface. I'm wondering what I'm going to see in the shadows, or is there missing time? Is this scarier than hell?
I was recently introduced to a surgeon who claims to remove implants, nanotechnology microchips embedded by aliens, non-humans monitoring our Earth. He talked about abductions, scalar wave transmissions, and a program to study or manipulate the human race. Armed with a patient, a scalpel, black lights, and a stud finder, I was eager to verify the authenticity of this alleged off-world implant technology.
It's not broadcasting in this electromagnetic spectrum at all, but is using scalar wave technology. And then when we use our electromagnetic devices and pick up a radio wave, we're actually reading a harmonic.
It would be right about here. I feel something vaguely. Whether that's the foreign material or not, I don't know. We've got the x-ray with us right here. If we lay it down on his leg, you can see this little spot here that shows through.
Yeah.
So it would be about here. So, sometimes you talk yourself into something. You're not sure if you really feel it or no, but you have to know it when you're going to do it.
It's got to be right there.
Well, you have optics anyway, right? You have ultrasound optics?
Right here, yeah. So I'll show them when I do the ultrasound. So we're not going to guess at it. We're going to find it. So this is the ultrasound goo. So I'm going to go straight up and down on this.
So Dr. Lear, what are we experiencing right now?
Oh, we're using ultrasound to try and locate the exact position of the object. It's not easy because it's not only superficial, but it's also close to the bone. So we're using ultrasound to try and locate it.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
Are you sure, Doctor? Somebody just didn't slip you a 50, just cut him.
As a surgeon, I know it's not your position to speculate on the origin of this object, but obviously you know the story going around that maybe there's a correlation between the abduction phenomena and these types of objects.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if you want to quote me on this, but I just don't believe it's alien. I believe it's some earthly particle that's from some carpentry thing. They whacked something, a little piece of metal flew off and stuck in them. They don't remember it because it was so tiny. And then those people, enough people have them. People with abductive experiences also may have the metal, so I don't know. He's doing the analysis on the metal, so I'm not. And that's where the things come in. I would reanalyze the metal, have another group analyze it and look at it if it was me doing it.
A foreign object was about to be removed from a man carrying this burden for over a decade. Nefarious implant by an extraterrestrial big brother or a piece of childhood shrapnel. I personally wanted to see what this foreign object was made of.
This piece of metal's in my leg, or whatever it is, and it's been there for God knows how long. So it'd be nice to yank it out, do the experiments on it, and see what it is. Like I said, I have some people in my life that just shake their heads. My girlfriend, my mom, a few other people are just saying, don't let them do it. It's a small incision. It's not like they're going into my lung. A few stitches, and it's a pretty simple procedure.
Small incision, big mystery.
Yes.
Were you surprised when they used the device for frequency, that what was in your leg seemed to be emitting
That's
a
pretty
frequency?
amazing. If that test is accurate, this is really an implant. And just by fluke, we found it. One thing led to another, and here we are today.
thing. I mean, it sounds like you've had some powerful experiences that have at least led you to entertaining the idea that, you know, there are non-humans, they are visiting the planet, and that, you know, they are engaging humanity.
The memories were as a child. I thought I had a couple abductions. Parents put locks high on the door when I was a young guy, so I went and drowned in a pool. And they'd find me outside and the locks were still locked. I remember waking up and being elevated on my back straight up and feeling my nightgown being pulled back. My thoughts were, man, I'm really going up quick if you can feel the clothes on your body being pulled back. So that was like the last time. It just felt like they were up to no good.
Have you ever seen a UFO?
No.
You never have?
Not that I remember. There's no insanity in my family. I'm healthy as an ox. And this is somehow happened.
We'll put the soft tissue in that, and then this will go in the serum. So do you want to get a close-up of this? Don't put it in anything till I dissect off the tissue. I leave a little piece of soft tissue on there so that when we use things like electron microscope, which we'll do at SEAL Labs, that soft tissue will show up under the electron microscope.
So Roger, success today?
Well, yeah, I'm very happy with the results that we got today. You know, the object is, it appeared, it went through all the testing, we got it out, and now we're going to, you know, look at it and see what the, both the biological and the metallurgical components are that it's made. And that will determine, you know, whether we have something that's out of the rose garden or something that's non-terrestrial.
Did you feel that we saw something anomalous today?
Yeah, it was definitely anomalous, and it was very similar to several other objects that we've seen that were removed from Roger's patients. Then nerve cells grow into the membrane, and this membrane forms an interface between the nervous system and the electronics of the device.
What can you say conclusively from today?
That it's probably a sophisticated nanotechnological device rather than just a fragment of something. These devices seem to be deliberately inserted into people. There's no portal of entry, and there's never an inflammatory response to the objects, which is highly unusual. It's unheard of. So when we get the path report back, that'll tell the tale as well as to whether it's one of these anomalous objects we've seen before. My working hypothesis is that these are nanotechnological devices from off-planet that have been perfected by some society that has had this technology for a very long time. I send half the object in for ICP-MS analysis, and that will give us some isotopic ratios and tell us whether the material is from off-planet.
Do you think that this is sinister? Like when you saw the eyes of those three oval head alien dudes that you tackled or tried to tackle in Las Vegas, you said that you could tell it was sinister. You could tell it was...
They're not there to take you out for pizza, that's for sure. I mean, they're there to manipulate you somehow, not to save you or give you a cure for cancer. They have their own agendas. And if it didn't, it'd be disclosure already. I mean, it has to be something behind this to keep it quiet.
Where did you come to that understanding?
Of course, their appearances are disturbing, but it's a sense. Like when you meet somebody that's nice and friendly, you go, hey, it's a nice person. And with these three people's things in my room, you just knew they're in your house without your permission. You know they're about to maybe take you somewhere and do whatever they want with you. I mean, how can that be a good thing? There's no way they rang the doorbell and said, hey, we're from outer space, want to have a beer? I mean, they're gangsters, you know, alien gangsters. They're doing what they want. God knows what they're doing to people. At least I was caught and released.
What would you say to an alien that was trying to abduct you if you could?
I don't know if I'd say anything rather than just treat them to like any burglar that was trying to break into my house and mess with my family is shoot them dead and I'll take them down. I mean, I think they're criminals. They're doing what they want. and a lot of cruel things to people, and be nice if a little payback, because this is unreasonable. How many abductees do you really need? How many people's lives do you have to ruin? I mean, man up, show your face, or take off. And for them to, always take you on a deserted road or late at night, they're obviously cowards on top of it. So they're criminals, they're cowards. They're that advanced. They should be able to just talk to us and explain things out, and and comfort us, rather than like mean little kids with a magnifying glass frying ants on a sunny day. Cowards. So leave me alone, and I hope I can take one of you out when it's possible.
You fought back against these alien gangsters. I mean, you did that day.
Yep. I was ready to duke it out with them. For some reason, they just didn't want to deal with it, but I was able to break that trance. It's really a weird feeling. You can't move. It's like there's no way this is happening to me tonight. And I was able to get up and go for it. Yeah, that's pretty amazing, to tell you the truth, because most people can't. So I was able to break. So they have weaknesses that you can't break through, apparently.
Are you saying to me that you feel strongly that the experiences you had were real?
Well, the experiences of childhood are real memories. And what happened in Vegas with the 2 abductions were real. But just fine details aren't there. Like I said in earlier conversations, maybe they are doing mental blocks on people because they know how frightening it is for the human race to deal with all this, but they still feel like we do with death animals. They can do what they want with us.
Do you feel that you were given a mental block from the experiences that you had?
Absolutely. There's no other way. They could have made me forget about it. So however that's done, I'm glad that's possible, because just knowing they were there in my room from childhood, sometimes in young adult, and now with this possible implant, you kind of feel violated. I mean, these people are like kidnapping you. You can believe what you want, but unless you get other people to believe too, it just seems like a fairy tale. I mean, it means nothing. You know, but if you tell people the story, they look at you like you're crazy, or you're a fool, or your religious friends think you're going to the dark side because if there's aliens, there's no God, which means you're an atheist or something. So everybody has their opinion on this. With all this going on, I'm just like a normal guy with extraordinary experiences that can't really be explained. You've gone through them, but unless you meet other abductees or somebody in the line of work, nobody believes you. Nobody really cares. And they really just want to put their fingers in their ears and walk away. They're just afraid of the truth, maybe. I mean, when it happens to them, or they know somebody personally that this stuff happens to, me, they'll open their eyes.
We got quite a few elements here. Let's see, we have boron, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, titanium, chromium, manganese, iron. Iron's a major component. Cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc, gallium, germanium. And the gallium and the germanium are indicative of the presence of meteoric iron. We got arsenic, strontium, yttrium, it's a rare earth element, zirconium, niobium, molybdenum. Molybdenum's kind of high. That's the highest I've seen it in one of these objects, actually, 405 ppm. We have some palladium, which is also indicative of meteoric iron. There's quite a few precious metals like palladium, platinum, rhodium, and meteoric iron. Lanthanum, that's also a rare earth element. Barium, hafnium, tantalum, tungsten, rhenium, thallium, lead, and bismuth.
As you look at this, Steve, does it look like it's a cake mix of, they could have used this chemistry to build something here on the planet? I mean, could be a piece of steel fragment from something from my past?
Yeah,
or?
it looked like it would be very strong with iron mixed with all these different elements. 1, 2, 3. We had 53 elements in object number 15. So
Seems kind of complex just to be a man-made thing. I mean, do chemists actually put this stuff together to make steel objects here?
yeah, this is a lot of elements. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we have a total of 36 elements here, so that is quite complex. Most industrial alloys don't have nearly that many elements in them.
The next move was to get interpretation of the data from a scientist known as Nanoman, a military-funded nanophysicist who might be able to shine light on our seemingly anomalous analysis. Maybe he could tell me if there was anything to this data. This came out of a man's leg. There have been a lot of kind of assumptions about it, but now we have the hard physical evidence, the elemental analysis. I just wanted you as a nanophysicist to basically look at it and...
Yes.
Is this a Tonka truck?
No. This sample is not a Tonka truck. It is not a rock or a pebble from the gravel. Maybe he picked up a piece of something in his leg and it's been bothering him. He had a strange experience and decided that he had an implant. No, this is not a stone, a pebble, or a Tonka truck. There is nothing I can imagine that could explain why this man would have a witch's brew of elements within a sample embedded in his leg. Arsenic. Quite a lot of arsenic, actually, in the sample. Yttrium. Yttrium is the material used in making superconductors. We have a huge amount of yttrium inside this, and yttrium is extremely toxic. Machining superconductors, you have to wear masks and gloves because the powder is deadly. There are just really an astounding number of elements here that are quite poisonous.
Are these elements unique in any way, just the elements themselves?
Oh, absolutely. This is the most astounding array of elements in a single sample I've ever seen. I have no idea how you would make such a thing.
Even in your world of nanotechnology, where you do fabricate pretty exotic, minute scale machines and that kind of thing, this is still interesting to you?
This object has an elemental analysis of a complexity I've never seen before.
Wow. This thing is fabricated, is what you're saying.
Oh yes, this thing is fabricated. Our most complex alloys, maybe you will have 5 different metals or oxides present in an alloy. This sample has an astounding array of metals present.
We're talking about something that is highly advanced and fabricated by an intelligence, is that correct?
Yes.
Straight up?
Yes, straight up. This material had to be fabricated by somebody, by an intelligence that was very sophisticated. Somebody went to a great deal of effort to create this object.
You know, I was told that there are 4 types of isotopes that are found on Earth in zinc. Those are the 4 that they analyzed?
There's a 5th one in very small quantity, but they basically looked at the big 4.
Okay. So they're created here within our star system, the supernova that created our star systems and our neighboring star systems.
Yes.
And they have certain ratios that are typically found as far as the concentration of these different types of zinc. So zinc 64, zinc 66, this kind of thing.
Yes.
What ratios are you seeing there? Are they out of proportion with terrestrial ratios, and what does that tell us?
So in any sample you expect some deviation from the normal isotopic ratio of any of these elements, but what we're seeing here is a dramatic shift in the isotopic ratios of the sample versus the average isotopic ratio of zinc found on Earth. This zinc is from some other part of the galaxy, at a minimum. I'm telling you, it's not from here. This sample did not come from our solar system, much less the Earth. These isotopes provided us the evidence. These are not naturally occurring on Earth.
My mind is still kind of frozen with shock. I did not expect there to be proof. You're just nodding your head, but I'm freaked out.
We have material that has been pulled out of a man's leg that should not exist. This sample could not have been made on Earth because the isotopic ratios do not support the idea or the theory that this sample was made here.
I mean, so you got the smoking gun, but it's in the form of an isotopic analysis. How do you make someone understand the implication of those numbers? Or maybe you don't.
The $64 trillion question remains, how did these ratios get here? This is not a ratio of zinc that you would find that would be naturally occurring. There's no this has nothing to do with naturally occurring zinc in our solar system or in the surrounding solar systems. Within our neighborhood of the galaxy, this did not come from. These elements were created in a supernova that was manufacturing these elements in different ratios.
Do you think, from what you've seen, these isotopes show us non-terrestriality?
Yes, I do.
Would you consider this scientific report of the isotopes a smoking gun?
Yes, I would. I don't believe any human made this sample.
I'm just trying to figure out my next step. I mean, I guess we're at a point where we can say big questions.
Yes, huge questions. This is the most significant pieces of actual hardcore data we have ever seen in the field of UFO and extraterrestrial, that is, white world. This is the single most compelling piece of data that's ever been generated. So that's a mystery. But the implication of this is stretching my imagination.
This is just about the point where I feel utterly lost. I've been investigating Dr. Lear's claims for almost a year now. It's been 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So here are the facts. Patient 17 had a strange object taken out of his leg. It was analyzed and interpreted by Dr. Lear's team. They believe the object is proof of advanced non-human intelligence engaging humanity. Patient 17 and I are less convinced. I called the lab, and they stood behind their results. When I asked them if the isotopic results were consistent with non-terrestriality, they quickly admitted that errors can occur. I presented the data to the head meteorite specialist at UCLA, and he basically told me that we would need more tests to determine the object's origin. Innumerable scientists, from material specialists to nanotechnicians, have interpreted the data, and it's a coin toss. Some find the composition anomalous, others say it's what you might expect to find in a common alloy. Most simply say, we need more tests. With Dr. Lear gone, our only hope to further this case is to get our hands on the sample and continue the quest. This has proven to be a challenge.
It sounds crazy, but in reality, these events happen. It's hard, it's your problem. You have to grapple with that. These events happened. And so that's everybody's challenge, is to try to absorb and integrate that information, or deny it, or ridicule it. That's what people like to do. But these events happened. There is a real mystery here, and I believe mysteries have solutions. I believe we can get at least closer to the truth. Are we alone in the universe? This intelligence that seems to be interacting with humanity, what is it? What is its purpose? These are real, tangible, physical events, but sometimes it's like a mirage. Nobody knows what we're dealing with. That's the bottom line. Nobody knows. It's our job to investigate the unexplained, not to explain the uninvestigated.